Crime Lab, Jennifer Shen. Jennifer has 30 years of experience with law enforcement as a forensic scientist. She's an expert in police procedure regarding forensic evidence collection, preservation, processing, and storage, and spent 15 years working in active crime scenes. Also joining us, Pasadena, California, former gang homicide detective Donald Schweitzer. Donald was a police officer for 10 years. He has investigated gang homicides as a detective. He served as a member of the SWAT unit and worked various narcotics assignments. Great to have our two experts with us tonight. Let's get right to our first story tonight from KMTV in Omaha, Nebraska. A cold case solved.
A cold-blooded killing. That's how Douglas County District Court Judge Peter Battalion describes what happened at a Ralston apartment complex in October 2013. Now, 28-year-old Ricardo Escobedo Jr. is sentenced to life in prison for second-degree murder and 40 years for use of a weapon.
Obviously this gives us some kind of closure, and hopefully it gives the family some kind of closure. I wholeheartedly agree with John Algavin that the sentence was just, and that's what we were hoping for.
42-year-old Amy Kearns was found shot and killed inside her apartment near 84th and L Streets. A few months later, Ralston police developed a suspect, but the case went cold. Investigators got DNA samples from the scene and were able to match it to Escobedo when he was arrested for another crime, and his DNA was put into CODIS.
It's a testament to the great work of the Ralston Police Department, their follow-through on this case, even though it was a case from several years ago. And it also shows how CODIS works.
Escobedo struggled to get out of the gang life and was associated with the Latin Kings. Kearns was apparently a drug runner, and the defense said she was moving more than 10 pounds of meth for the cartel, and she shorted them money. Escobedo was approached by the cartel to rob Kearns when he shot her. The convicted told the court, quote, "My sincerest condolences for the victim's family. I take full responsibility for my actions and accountability."
No one deserves to have this happen to them and their life to be taken. But certainly, people should be aware that if you're in that sort of business, this is the kind of thing that happens when people try to collect debts or money for drugs.
The sentences will be served consecutively, so Escobedo will have life in prison plus 40 years and a day. He will get credit for 384 days served.
All right, it's a cold case, another one solved. How common is this is my first question. And Jennifer, I'll send this one to you. I mean, it's amazing what's happening, but how common is this?
It's actually becoming more and more common. One of the great things about DNA is, first of all, it's kind of evidence that can help identify someone, but it's also perfect to put into a database. So much of the DNA profiles in the CODIS database are from crimes where we don't know who committed them, but there's DNA left at the scene. And we put those profiles into our database, and at some time, because many people commit crimes again and again and again, that person's going to get arrested, and then we're going to figure out who they are. So it's an incredibly powerful tool, and it's being used to solve cold cases all over the country.
Donald Schweitzer, let's talk about that term, cold case. When does a case go cold?
Well, Vinny, I think this is kind of a lukewarm case in my standards. Of course, in today's day in fighting crime, it may be cold, but I don't think there's a magic number. It depends on what year you're living in. If you were living in the year where I was on the streets going after gang members, this would be a lukewarm case. It's pretty amazing that we're solving crimes involving gangs using DNA evidence. Usually they were very difficult because you had no witnesses that were willing to testify, and so there was no DNA, there was no physical evidence. It was just a bullet and maybe some tire marks from the car taken off. So, in today's standards, I guess this is cold, but not for me.
Jennifer, let me ask you about CODIS. And someone gets arrested, right, in certain states and jurisdictions, they're going to take a DNA sample and put it into this database. Are there any other comparisons, any other DNA that's put in this database? Are there comparisons of this DNA that is just sitting there with maybe some of these DNA ancestry type of services that are out there where you might be able to connect to maybe a relative or something? Is that sort of work being done regularly, or is that like sort of a special situation for that to happen?
That's a really great question. In the forensic laboratories, we're putting in forensic unknowns, it's DNA from crime scenes, that we don't know who it belongs to, but we put that in the database. And then if someone is arrested for a felony in many states and in California, their DNA is being collected and put in the database to help solve crimes and connect cases. And if someone's an active suspect in a crime, we can take their DNA and put it in the database. The other questions you're asking about, it is possible, and it's done on special cases, to look for relatives of people who are in the database, and we can do that kind of work. And as you know, the ancestry DNA is just a whole new market of possibilities to find information about unknown DNA profiles and hopefully connect them to a family tree and therefore work your way down investigatively to an actual suspect. So it's just a really exciting time in DNA, and we are solving cases right and left.
Yeah, and this case was solved. He admitted what he did, and he's locked up as a result. All right, let's take a look at our next case tonight. This